Shabbat Shalom. First and foremost, I want to say, Call him Yahweh Shem Yahshua, Shema, Rikakodash, and double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who do all teach well. I just want to go into, a film I just saw called The Money Masters. It's a pretty much a documentary. It goes all into money, about how, the U.S., Babylon uses fiat currency in the history of this country, mostly about how there's been a series of battles and back and forth about the banking system, or whether or not America should have a central bank. But of course, it's a prophecy that there would be an international bank, or not international bank, a central bank, and that bank would issue fiat notes and things like that, which would of course aid in Babylon becoming the top nation and things like that, and being known for that, and they spread their violence and things like that to pretty much uphold their dollar. So it goes all into that stuff. Goes into some of the history. These are the European nations and how they started getting jacked up once they started adopting use of stop dropping physical coinage and things like that, and started adopting debt-based society, central bank, and things like that. So just go to a couple precepts. So this is the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 4. Bold the soul which is lifted up is not upright in them, but the just shall live by his faith. All right. So the first is his soul is lifted up, it's not right in them. It's talking about these Edomites, man. Starting with these elites, man. They're extremely, extremely proud. They're the faceless controllers. They're not seen in public very often. Talking about these, the Rothschilds, Warburgs, Schiffs, and the like. And you don't see them very often. But they're very proud. When you hear them speak, you go into the history of the Rothschild family. They're extremely, extremely proud. They would, back both sides of a war and make all this money and say, "Oh wow, did some good business." I think that was Nathan Rothschild who said that. Because I saw the, going into what I was reading the film, watching the film. He was pretty much saying things like that because he was around the time of Napoleon and the like. Of course, Rothschild had a big hand in that. He's not upright in him, because he backed all kinds of things. He also backed, involved in backing the American Revolution, the Civil War, all kinds of things. And even, GP Morgan, Morgan Chase, that guy, when he died, he found that, a lot of his money wasn't even his, going back to, unknown investors and things like that. Those elites, elite banking families, right? So they work in the shadows and things like that, and they think that no one's gonna catch them. That they're gonna be able to, the scripture says, the houses shall continue forever. That's what they think. Right? But the just shall live by his faith, right? That's all for luck, and your Lord will be at that number, and we live by our faith. Faith in Yahweh Shem Yahushai, the names, the image, and we push that, we confess that, on the highways and byways, our sit downs and the like. You also, because you transgressed by wine, which is the philosophies, that's the wine of Babylon, that makes the nations mad. Right? It's these philosophies, Americanization, that you could do whatever you want, be whatever you want, that do what thou wilt spirit, which corrupts families, corrupts the youth, you know, makes the boys, fucking feminine as hell, weak as hell, demasculizes men, they gotta fucking, walk on eggshells and shit, and, that type of thing, and that the female should be, just be hoeing, and, shouldn't be, you know, it's like, the female should be, keepers at home, um, and like, maybe just be out there in the street, all that dumb shit, right? That you're a man, you can wear dresses. If you're a woman, you could be a boy. If you want to be a boy, it's all madness, right? Here's a problem, man. Neither keep it at home, because Babylon, America has 700 something military bases around the world. He's actually starting to, remember reading an article, he's actually starting to revive one out there in Puerto Rico, getting ready for a conflict with Venezuela, who his desire is hell and his death cannot be satisfied. And so, that just means hell means the grave. Means that his desire is as the grave. The grave doesn't complain about, how many people it takes in. It just, it takes in the bodies. It doesn't complain and cannot be satisfied, because this man can't, be satisfied. He just, takes. These elites, they have control, over the world, over the, financial economy, of pretty much the whole world. Talking about these elite bank families, they have all these resources, islands that you can't even find on Google Maps. They got shit like that. They got all this stuff, and and Google that too. There's actually a Rothschild Island. You can't find it on Google, but you know what I mean. He's not satisfied, and what's the next thing these guys want to push? That MOTB, and that's what Aaron Russo in that interview. He pretty much said, he was like, yeah, we want to, chip you guys, because it's like, yeah, we have all the power in the world, but we always want more, I think he was interviewing Nick Rockefeller or something, but yeah. So his desires is death and cannot be satisfied, but gathered to more nations, even to more people, So that melting pot society, just like ancient Rome. And there you go, you have that one. So 6, it's not all these people proverb against him. This is what I was mainly thinking of when I was watching the film. Shall all these take a parable against him, that attempted proverb against him, saying, "Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his." How long? Right, that's what Habakkuk is saying. Destruction. How long we got to deal with this? And we all, men of the Lord, we all think like that. You shouldn't be thinking like that. Man, how long we got to deal with this? You know what I mean? You should be, if you really paying attention, you should be thinking like that, man. Because it's like, this is a fucking wicked man. You're supposed to know that. You know what I mean? You're supposed to see that. You're supposed to understand that. You know what I mean? It's not you shouldn't be, wishing Esau success in anything. All right, hoping that America continues until 2030, or wishing that America, just praying for America's success and you in the truth. That's madness. You're not even really in the truth. You believe that, you're following a different doctrine. All right, the scripture says, "Hasten in the day." All right, and Romans 13:11 says, that time is nearer than we believe. So let's not, sleep. All right, so let's stay awake. All right. So into him that lateth himself with thick clay. All right, and that thick clay, you go into it and say, but yet, this means debt. Debt-based society. I think it's America that has the largest trade deficit in the world. Pretty much means that the stuff that they bring in, the amount of money they spend on bringing stuff in, is more than the amount of money they get from taking stuff out. Because America is a big importer, huge importer of all these different goods, different vehicles, German cars, Japanese cars, luxury vehicles. Yeah, I mean, different minerals, this thing, that thing, all this different tech, phones, computers, components. I think even the damn, what do you call it, the street covers. I'm pretty sure I read, made in Bangladesh, some of these things, made in India, clothing, so all this stuff. All right, so I wanted to go down. Yeah, so Habakkuk 2:15. Want him to give his neighbor a drink that puts a bottle to him that he may that puts that bottle to him and makes him drunken also. We must look on their nakedness, right? Teaching us nonsense, to these different nations, that influence, this madness, and thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, but that force can be uncovered. The cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee. Shameful spoiling should be upon thy glory. Should be on thy glory. All right, so shame for glory. All right, your force can be uncovered. All right, so let's pretty much talk about this place. This man Esau being exposed. Going back from the smallpox blankets, they're going down to this damn devil here in America did, bringing Jake from the west coast of Africa over here, serve hardcore slavery, beating the shit out of them, taking limbs, having dudes spread eagle and then whipping his ass, fucking buck breaking, you know what I mean? I was reading one book, what was this book called? The Black Jacobins. I read that book. Man, that book was going into how in Haiti, man, they were blowing Jake up, like they were using different, explosive powder, and they were like lighting him up and just like actually blowing him up and shit, and that's what they did for fun. If you were a Jake and you maybe had a shop or whatever, and they will make it a habit to like try to touch on your woman and stuff in front of you, right? And that was the type of time that Esau, I mean, he was running on, man, and he's still on that type of time, man. He damn devil. He has no mercy. He's just moving, to get his, try to get his chipped, right? You know what I mean? But he's gonna get a lot of Jakes, man, and he's just not gonna get, a little Fulek, right? Because they're not gonna be deceived. If it was possible, they would see the very elect. They ain't doing that. Right? It's not happening. Alright, so that's pretty much that. Let's get like one more, and then we'll call it. Because I'm gonna get into these precepts. I don't want to talk too much here. What was the other one I wanted to get? Hold on. Yeah, so this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 43. The stranger that's within thee shall get up above thee very high, nor shall come down very low. All right, so let's talk about these nations, that were round about us. These different nations, they're above us. These different, going from like a low level, these different Moabites and shit. They're going up to the highest level, these Edomites, man. They're all above us. You know what I mean? I don't say Moab's at like a lower level, but you know what I mean? Like in the hood, these Chinese restaurants and things like that, feeding people all this fucking madness, fucked up ass food, and the way they cook it is really fucked up, man. I mean, they just got like piles and piles of sugar and they'll just dump that shit on some chicken, bro. Like, it's kind of fucked up, man. Like, there's no reason for that. You know what I mean? Or you know, you know for a fact they probably like touching one thing with pork and just stirring it all together. If they drop something, they probably put that shit back in there. You know what I mean? Uh, and stuff like that, man. Um, yeah, you got these different what do you call it? These different Ishmaelites there in our neighborhoods, taking over the bodegas, uh, these little what was it called? Bodega, the little delis and whatever. Because I used to be Northern Kingdom thing, but now you got Ishmael. You know what I mean? You took that shit over. Every deli by every train station is ran by Ishmaelite. You know what I mean? A lot of these little fast food spots ran by Bangladeshis. Um, Popeyes, Bangladesh, fucking. I don't know about McDonald's. You still got Jake and McDonald's, but yeah, it's just like that, you know. But yeah, they're gonna get up high and we're gonna get low, and that's what happened. Going all the way up to these elites, they're really high, man. They got these different banks, BlackRock, different investment companies. Our people are very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. All right, we're the lowest people. All right, so-called black Hispanics, Native Americans are the lowest people. All over, man. You know what I mean? Look at the slums, and you see some Jakes over there, man. You know, slums here. See Jake, and going back to even where Amlek is at, man, and they're occupying our land. You know, I'm not saying that those guys are Jakes. Those what they call Ethiopians. But, you got some Jakes among them. And they treat them like dog shit. Right? So yeah, lending. The banks. When we got to go to the bank. We got to get our bank accounts with them. We got to keep our money with them. But we don't. They don't come to us for that stuff. So let that be that. Lord, finance issue. Shalom.